And speaking of making that college football playoff, I think it's also time to go ahead and dive into the 4 teams that I think that will make it into the college football playoff. So obviously we're going to have Michigan based off of what I said earlier in the national championship criteria. They're going to be one of the 4 teams. You can't win a national championship if you don't even make it to the college football playoff. Duh, right? So what about the other 3 spots? I think the other 3 spots are going to be real interesting. So for the first of 3 spots, I think Georgia does get into the national championship. Georgia still has a special team, even though they do have minor cultural issues. The sexual allegation stuff that came from the Atlantic Journal Chronicle, listen, it was a lie, but the drag racing, that's not too far from the truth. So I think we might be seeing some cracks in the Georgia culture. But that being said, I'm looking at, if you guys have seen Georgia's schedule, I have a really difficult time believing that Georgia is not. I don't see them losing a game in the regular season. I just don't see that happening. And because I don't see that happening, I think they'll get into the college football playoff, and I think they'll get in, even though I don't necessarily think they'll win the SEC. I think LSU can do that. I think LSU beats Georgia this time around, but because Georgia went undefeated in the regular season, Bulldogs are going to have nothing to worry about. A 12-1 team that is a 2-time defending national champion, they're going to be invited into the college football playoff. So that's my second team. But then the other 2 teams that I have are teams that might be newcomers, 2 teams that were not in the college football playoff last year. First team that I have is Florida State. Yep, I said it. The Florida State Seminoles, I picked them to win in the ACC. If you check that very first podcast. Now, for Florida State, there is 2 key games. They do have, they got to play Clemson in the regular season. Might have to play them twice. And they also play LSU. First game of the season, neutral site game. They're playing LSU. So if they can beat LSU or if they beat Clemson in the regular season, Florida State's going to be in really good shape because the rest of the schedule, I see Florida State winning. Bare minimum, I see the Seminoles being a 10-2 team this year. If they beat LSU or Clemson, I think they're going to the college football playoff. Because here's the thing, another caveat in all of this is that Louisville might be a dark horse and they could sneak their way into the ACC, but Louisville might be the case of that you aren't exactly what your record says you are. So like Louisville could be in the ACC championship at 10-2. They could. But then they would get crushed by Florida State. I'm just saying. They have a real good quarterback in Jordan Travis. They got playmakers on both sides of the ball. It's going to be the best team that Mike Norvell has had since he's taken that Florida State job. He's done a very good job building that team up. He's hit the transfer portal extremely well. And I think it's going to be rewarded by Florida State making their first college football playoff since back in the days where Jameis Winston was donning that Florida State Seminoles jersey. And then my final team that could be a hot take. This could be very well a hot take. I think the Washington Huskies get that 4th and last playoff spot. We talked about how exciting the Pac-12 could be. There's 5 teams ranked at the top 25. If you're counting UCLA, you got 6 in the top 30. It's going to be absolutely fun to watch Pac-12 football this season. The last year that, frankly, the Pac-12 will likely be relevant. That being said, though, I think Washington is a team that you really got to watch out for. They went 11-2 last year. This was a team that didn't even have a single NFL draft pick. Think about that. Northwestern had 4 draft picks. 4 draft picks, okay? And they didn't win a game in the continental United States. Their only win was out in Dublin, where Notre Dame and Navy are set to kick off the college football season. Okay? So, you know what that tells me? The core of this team is back. They're led by Michael Penix Jr., and Penix Jr. is back. We saw the Penix Jr. that took Indiana to a top 25 ranking. Think about that. Indiana was ranked in the top 25 when he was quarterbacking the Indiana Hoosiers. He tore his ACL, was not the same in 2021. That led to him transferring to Washington, and now he's back. He is back. And listen, I know there's a Heisman Trophy quarterback in Caleb Williams. He might not be the best quarterback out there in the Pac-12, but I think Washington is the most complete team in the Pac-12. And because of that, I think they win that conference, and I think they get that fourth and final playoff spot this upcoming season.